Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT, and I want to give my reaction to this five-star classic that we just witnessed. The Chiefs topped the Ravens 27-20 in Arrowhead. What a way to kick off the 2024 NFL season, man. This game had everything that you look for in a five-star classic. I mean, you had controversial calls. You had that touchdown that got waved off at the end. They always say that football is a game of inches, and that play was the perfect definition to the meaning of that phrase, man, because just an inch of his cleat was on the chalk, and that was enough for the touchdown to get waved off. But for all you Ravens fans out there, I want y'all to be honest with me, okay? Listen, I love the young legend out of Pompano. I am the biggest Lamar Jackson fan in the world. I believe he's just as good as Patrick Mahomes. But let's be real. Tonight against the Kansas City Chiefs, Lamar Jackson sold this game. He overthrew Isaiah Likely on that corner route. He missed Zay Flowers when he was open in the end zone. We view Lamar Jackson in high regard. He's a two-time MVP. You expect him to make those plays. Now, I'm not saying that this loss was all on him because he was carrying this team. He was looking like Allen Iverson back there in the pocket. He was doing crossovers inside the pocket. He was making Chris Jones and that Chiefs pass rush look stupid out there. The Ravens offensive line was absolutely atrocious. And the play calling picked up for where it left off in the AFC Championship game. The play calling was awful. How does Derrick Henry only have 13 touches? I don't care how bad the offensive line is. You got to give Derrick Henry at least 20 touches a game because at least 5 out of those 20 carries, he's going to break at least a few of those off to 30, 40-yard gains. He's one of those backs that wears you out as you progress throughout the game. And we didn't really hear Derrick Henry's name being called that much after the first quarter. It had me scratching my head. Baltimore's defense played pretty well. Their worst play of the night was when they had that blown coverage that allowed Xavier Worthy to get that wide open touchdown. But outside of that, they had a pretty good game. The pass rush actually showed up. We saw appearances from Adolphe Owe and David Ojabo, and Ravens fans have been waiting a while for Adolphe Owe and Ojabo to actually do something, and they stepped up tonight. But what lost Baltimore the game was the lack of ability to find ways to move the ball outside of Lamar Jackson. The way Lamar Jackson was playing tonight, he was playing like he had something to prove. And that's why I'm not going to pin this loss all on him because he balled out tonight. He carried Baltimore. You take Lamar off the field in this game, this probably isn't a close matchup. Kansas City probably wins this thing by 3 touchdowns, man, because Lamar Jackson was really doing his thing out there, making up for the lack of efficient pass blocking he was receiving. Tyler Linderbaum is one of the best 3 centers in the game, and he got owned tonight. I mean, for Lele, their new right tackle, he didn't look that good. The Ravens have 3 new starters on their offensive line. And with how young this unit is, it's expected for them to have shaky performances like the one we saw tonight. But it's hard to see the Ravens making it to the Super Bowl this year, even to the AFC Championship again, with how bad their O-line played. Look, you can only go so far in the postseason with Lamar Jackson carrying your offense. You know, you're going to need that offensive line to be able to step up. What's going to happen if you have to face off against the Buffalo Bills pass rush? You know, what if you got to play Kansas City again in the regular season? You know, the Ravens just have a hard time finding ways not to beat themselves when they play Kansas City, because I really believe Baltimore lost this game. They beat themselves more than Kansas City beat them. Don't get me wrong, like, Kansas City had their moments, but really with the fumble that you had with the strip sack, the defense only holds them to a field goal. You had some questionable play calling to end the second half. There were moments where Baltimore beat themselves. And that's what makes this game so frustrating, because that's the same thing that you saw in the AFC Championship that lost that game. As much as you can blame Lamar Jackson for not playing well in that game, the coaching and the team kind of failed them in some of the crucial moments of that game. And we saw tonight what makes Kansas City a threat to three-peat, why they're a current dynasty right now, because they execute in crucial moments. Now they had their fair share of mishaps, but the way the Ravens started this game, you had the illegal procedure penalty like 4 or 5 damn straight times. It was a really sloppy performance that we saw out of Baltimore. And if it wasn't for Lamar, they would have lost this game in really ugly fashion. Lamar made up for a lot of problems that the Ravens had, and they got to get them cleaned up, man. It's going to be hard for you to make a deep playoff run if your offensive line doesn't play better. Your defense played pretty good until that busted coverage that allowed Worthy to score. And for Kansas City, this wasn't a pretty game from them. They had opportunities where they kind of kicked themselves in the foot. The fact that their defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, was able to call a timeout was really weird, because only a head coach can do that. So I do think that they kind of rigged the game a little bit at that point, at least at that time, because you can only allow the head coach to call the timeout. And even Steve Spagnuolo, after the play, he was kind of smirking on the sideline. Like, you ever did something that you weren't supposed to as a kid and you got away with it and you kind of walked around with a little smug on your face? Yeah, that was Steve Spagnuolo after he got that timeout. And you got Andy Reid kind of dabbing him up undercover. This game was a little weird, man. Honestly, it really was, because there were certain moments when I was like, what's going on out there, man? The Ravens offensive line, the illegal procedure penalties out there. You got Lamar Jackson snapping on the offensive line. You got John Harbaugh snapping on the referees, as he should, because it's all those illegal procedure penalties, they better be making sure that Kansas City's offensive line is lined up correctly, man. Because, I get that they're strict on the rules and guys need to be lined up properly. But, come on, man. 4 or 5 straight times, something don't seem a little bit odd about that to y'all, because it seems a little bit odd to me. You feel me? I'm not trying to say that the refs won this game for Kansas City. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying that there was a lot of questionable things going on during this game from the dudes in the black and white out there. The Zebras were kind of having a little bit of a factor in Kansas City winning this game a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm not going to say that they won the game for KC, because the Ravens had the opportunity to win it and Lamar sold. Okay, I love Lamar, but we got to hold Lamar accountable. We just can't be loving on Lamar, but not hold him accountable when it's due, man. He could have made that throw to Zay Flowers. He could have got this game tied to overtime. But I'm not going to be too hard on him, because, his team around him didn't really help him out that much with how bad the blocking was, how bad the play calling was. He was the sole reason Baltimore was in this thing to the end. And for Kansas City, man, Patrick Mahomes, I felt like he played pretty good. Some of my homeboys are trying to tell me that Lamar outplayed Mahomes because he had to do more. I don't see that. Just because you have to do more doesn't mean that you outplayed somebody. Mahomes played a pretty good game. He did have a bad interception, but he made his magic out there. He was doing some Houdini stuff. He had some big runs. Mahomes played well. Kansas City, it wasn't a perfect performance from them, but overall, this is a great game that we just watched, and this is a game that, despite it being played in week 1, is going to have massive ramifications when it comes to playoff seeding potentially late in the season. Because let's say that the Ravens and the Chiefs are jockeying for the 1 seed in the AFC this year, and they have the same record. This game is going to be the tiebreaker because Kansas City owns the head-to-head. So this was a great game. I'm happy that we got NFL football back. Leave your thoughts and comments on this game down below. Remember that we aren't just a YouTube channel. We are a podcast. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. Make sure that you subscribe, turn on post notifications. Also, check out our other channels, our NFL only and college football only channels will be in the description down below. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys shortly with another episode.